The storm had passed, but the battlefield was still quiet. Broken and full of smoke, pieces of metal and armor were buried in the mud. The air smelled like burning wires. Oil and blood. The war had ended here hours ago. But the land still trembled with pain. James, a human mechanic, moved slowly across the wreckage. He wasn't a soldier, just a scavenger, wearing a dirty coat and carrying a broken scanner. He looked for power cells, tools, or anything useful. His boots sank into the deep mud with every step. But he didn't stop. He walked past a twisted alien walker. Its legs snapped like twigs. Around it, pieces of alien armor were half buried in the wet earth. He bent down and pulled out a metal blade. Blood still on the edge. He sighed, tired, and stood up again. That's when he heard it, a sound, soft and broken, like a growl. Then another, a sharp breath, followed by a whisper of pain. Please. James froze. His scanner showed nothing. But his ears didn't lie. The sound came again, closer this time, behind the wreck of a crushed transport pod. He stepped carefully, pushing aside a metal plate. Underneath was a hole in the ground, filled with smoke and steam. Then a hand shot out. A clawed hand, trembling, blood-covered, grabbing his leg with surprising strength. James almost fell back, but then he saw her, an alien warrior. Half buried in the mud, her armor was cracked open across her chest. Glowing blue blood leaking into the ground, her face was sharp, noble. But twisted in pain, her eyes glowed violet. Wide with terror, she screamed, her voice like broken glass. Rip it out before it kills me. James blinked, confused. What? He asked, but she grabbed his shirt with both hands now. Dragging herself up slightly, "It's inside me," she gasped. "Moving, growing, kill it, please." He looked down. Her chest plate was half melted, and beneath it, her skin bulged unnaturally. Something moved under her skin like a worm or a snake, pulsing, pushing, twisting. James cursed under his breath. "What is that?" "Biotech tracker," she hissed. "It's designed to control, punish. It will explode if I disobey, if I don't kill it." "It kills me." James had seen many strange things since the war began, but nothing like this, a living device inside her. Killing her from within, he grabbed her arm. "Come on. We need shelter." She was heavy, taller than him, armored and bleeding, but somehow James pulled her free from the mud. Her body left a trail of thick blood and black slime behind. She screamed again, teeth clenched. Her voice filled with pain and fear. A few minutes later, James dragged her into a nearby crashed cargo pod. It was still half intact, with one working door and dim emergency lights inside. He laid her down on some broken fabric and knelt beside her. "Can you breathe?" He asked. "Barely," she muttered. "It's wrapping around my lungs, my heart." "Please, don't wait." James opened his toolkit. It wasn't much, just scrap metal, wires, some welding gear, and an old scanner. No medical tools, no surgery supplies. He looked at her, really looked now. Her armor had royal markings. This wasn't a normal soldier. She was someone important once. Now she was dying in a broken pod, begging a human to save her. "What's your name?" He asked softly. "Jera," she whispered, her eyes losing focus. "My name is Jera. Okay?" "Jera," he said. "I'm James, and I'm going to help you, but you need to stay awake. Understand?" She nodded weakly. James scanned her chest with the device. The parasite, or whatever it was fused with her ribcage, roots spreading like a virus through her bloodstream. He had never done anything like this, but he had no choice. She would die. And maybe him too, if that thing exploded. Jera groaned again, her body shaking. "It knows. You're here now. It will try to stop you." James's hands shook, not from fear, But from the weight of what he was about to do, he looked at his tools, at her face, and at the pulsing monster under her skin. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "Don't die on me, warrior." Then he picked up a blade and moved toward her chest. Asterisk inside the broken cargo pod, the lights flickered dimly, casting a soft blue glow on the cracked walls. The air smelled like rust, fuel, and burning wires. Outside, the cold wind howled. But inside, time had frozen. James sat beside Jira. Staring at the strange movement under her skin, her breathing was shallow. Her face was pale, almost graying. The glow in her eyes had faded. But the thing in her chest was very much alive. It moved in sharp, crawling waves, pulsing with a faint yellow light. It looked like something between a machine and a parasite. Something unnatural. James held the scanner above her body. The screen blinked with unreadable symbols. Then started showing lines: heartbeat, internal heat, and a strange new signal. The device inside her wasn't just alive. It was connected to something, maybe someone far away. "Jira," James whispered, "it's still active. Do you know what happens if I remove it?" She opened her eyes slowly. Her lips trembled as she spoke. "If you remove it wrong, it kills us both." James felt his stomach twist. He wasn't a doctor. He was a battlefield scavenger. A man who fixed broken tech and powered old engines. Not someone who opened up a warrior's chest with scrap tools, but she had no one else. And she had trusted him. "What is it really?" he asked. "You called it a biotech tracker, but I've never seen anything like this." Jera coughed, blue blood dripping from her mouth. "It's a punishment device." "From my own people," James blinked. "They did this to you." "I disobeyed orders," she said slowly. "I refuse to fire on civilians." Children. James looked at her differently now. Not just an alien warrior, she was someone who chose mercy. Someone who was punished for doing what was right. "I was captured, then escaped," Jira continued. "But before I fled, they implanted the seed." "The seed?" James asked, confused. "That thing inside me," she whispered. "It starts small, connects to the nerves, then grows. Until it owns your body." James frowned. "So it's alive?" "Yes," she said, her voice barely audible, "and it listens to them. It will report my location if I move too far from this crash site. That's why I stayed hidden. I was hoping it would die with me." James stood and walked over to his pack. He pulled out a thin rod with a sharp edge, a small cutting laser, and a few wires from a broken medrone. He didn't know exactly what he was doing, but he had an idea. "I'm going to try something," he said. "You need to stay still." Jira didn't answer, but she gave a weak nod. He connected the wires to his scanner, tuned the frequency, and slowly pressed the sensor close to the bulge in her chest. The parasite reacted instantly, twisting hard beneath her skin. Her body jerked, her hands grabbed the floor, and she let out a scream that echoed through the pod. "Stop!" she gasped. "It's angry." James pulled back, breathing hard. The scanner was shaking in his hand, blinking red. "That thing isn't just connected to you," he said. "It's aware of what I'm doing." Jira closed her eyes. "Then you have to be faster than it, James, or you'll die with me." Silence fell in the pod, except for her shallow breathing and the soft hum of dying systems. James stared at his tools, then at her, and then back at the glowing mass under her skin. He reached into his bag and pulled out a silver tuban, old plasma coil from a crashed medical ship. He had been saving it to trade. But now it was the only thing that might help Jira, he said. "I'm going to try to isolate the connection. Lines cut the nerves before it reacts." She bit her lip. "Then do it fast." James leaned over her, hands shaking. He pressed the plasma coil against the skin. Carefully heating the tip, he slid the scanner close, tracking the movement, watching the heartbeat. The moment he touched the tip to the edge of the bulge, The parasite flared its yellow light, flashing bright like a warning. Jira screamed again. Arching her back, her arms flailed. Her eyes rolled back, and blood poured from her nose. James held her down with one arm and continued to burn around the edges of the device. Carefully, slowly, the parasite hissed a sound that didn't come from her mouth. But from inside her chest then, it stopped moving. Jira collapsed, panting, sweat pouring from her brow. James sat back, shaking, I think. I stunned it. She opened her eyes slowly. "That's just the beginning," she whispered. "Now you have to cut it out." Before it wakes up again, he looked at the blade in his hand. Then at her face, then back to the thing beneath her skin. "I hope you're ready," he said quietly. Jira gave him a half smile, even through the pain. I was born ready, outside. The wind howled louder, but inside the pod. The real storm was just beginning. The pod groaned with the wind pressing against its side. But James didn't hear it. His focus was locked on Jira's chest, where the thing inside her had gone still, but not dead. He could feel it, waiting, listening, just beneath the skin. Jira's body trembled as she lay still on the cold floor. Her armor was peeled back completely now, revealing glowing blue veins around the swollen area of her chest. They pulsed faintly like they were part of the creature too. James wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at his tools. They weren't meant for surgery. They were parts he had gathered from broken machines, scrap metal, and forgotten drones. But they were all he had. He picked up a long, thin rod with a sharp end once part of a plasma drill. Then a salvaged needle from a medkit he found days ago, finally. He reached for a piece of polished mirror he had broken from a cockpit window. It would help him see under the folds of skin once he started. Jira watched him with tired eyes. "I never thought a human would be the one doing this," she whispered. Voice hoarse, James gave a half smile. "Neither did I." He knelt beside her, laid the mirror flat near her ribs, and took a breath. "I'll have to make the first cut here." "You need to stay still, Jira." "I will," she said. Then added with a weak smile, "Unless I pass out again." He brought the plasma rod close and turned it on. The tip glowed red, then white-hot. He pressed it against her skin gently, and the flesh sizzled open. Blue blood oozed from the line, and James quickly used cloth to wipe it aside. Beneath the skin, the thing moved again, its body curling like a worm made of metal and nerves. It had spines black, sharp spines that looked like they were digging deeper into her body. James nearly dropped the tool. "What the hell is this thing?" Jira was sweating, biting on a scrap of leather to keep from screaming. Her body twitched, but she didn't move away. James carefully slid the mirror under the skin flap and angled the light. The creature's central node was visible now, like a pulsing eye, with every second. The light grew brighter again. "It's waking up," he muttered. He reached for the needle, dipped it in old freezing gel, and stabbed it just beside the node. The light flickered, then dimmed again. "Good," he whispered. "Sleep, you monster." Jira coughed. "Blood coming up. James, if it connects to my spine, I'll lose control of my body." James worked faster, using the rod to burn around the tendrils. Each one popped and shrank as he hit them, releasing a strange gas and a sour smell. Jira's chest rose and fell. Rapidly, she was fading. "Jira," he shouted, tapping her cheek. "Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open. "Barely. I'm here." He took a deep breath. "One last part." "I have to pull it out." She nodded once, weakly. James wrapped a wire around the base of the node, connected the other end to a broken servomotor arm. He tightened the grip, counted to 3, then yanked. Jira screamed louder than ever before. Her back arched. The pod shook, and James felt the resistance suddenly give way. The creature tore free from her chest with a wet rip, spraying blood and slime everywhere. He threw it across the pod and grabbed a metal plate. Slamming it over the thing, it writhed, screeching. Sharp legs scratching against the surface. James grabbed a power cell and smashed it down on the creature again and again until it stopped moving. Then silence. James turned back, panting. His hands were covered in glowing blue blood. His shirt was soaked. His tools were smoking. Jira lay motionless. Her chest still bleeding, but the bulge was gone. Her face was calm to calm Jira. He whispered, crawling toward her. "Come on, say something." No response. He pressed his fingers to her neck. There was still a pulse, but faint. He opened the emergency medkit and injected the last stim he had into her shoulder. Her body jerked slightly. Then, her eyes opened, slow, unfocused. "You did it," she whispered. James let out a laugh mixed with tears. "Yeah, I did." Somehow, she smiled. Just barely. "Then maybe. I don't hate humans anymore." He laughed again, shakily, and sat back against the wall. His arms felt like lead. His chest like stone, but they were alive. As they rested in silence, something outside the pod clicked. A soft beep from James' scanner began to flash red. The creature had transmitted a signal before dying. James stood quickly, looking through the small window slit. Shapes were moving in the storm-dark figures with glowing eyes. Jira tried to sit up. "They're coming. My people, the ones who sent the parasite." James grabbed a weapon, an old alien blaster with one shot left. He handed it to Jira. "They're going to want that thing back," he said. Jira loaded the blaster and looked at him. Blood still on her face. "Then we give them nothing outside." The shadows grew closer, and inside, two survivors prepared for war. The wind outside howled louder now, smashing against the broken cargo pod like it was angry. James stood by the door, gripping the old alien blaster in his shaky hands. His knuckles were white, his eyes scanning the fog beyond the cracked window slit. Every few seconds, red shapes moved between shadows, slow. Careful hunting. Jira sat against the far wall. One hand on her bleeding chest. The parasite was gone, but the damage it left behind still hurt. She breathed slowly, hiding her pain. Her eyes sharp again, not just with survival, but fury. "They'll come in pairs," she said, her voice rough but steady. "They never fight alone. They move fast. But they don't expect resistance from a wounded traitor." James looked over at her. "They're after you, not me." She gave a bitter laugh. "That thing inside me transmitted before you crushed it. They don't care who helped me. They'll kill you just for being near me." James sighed, checking the blaster's charge again. One shot, maybe two if he was lucky. Not nearly enough to fight off trained alien soldiers with energy rifles and body armor. The pod shook again, this time from something heavier like boots landing outside. James stepped back quickly and looked at Jira. "Do you still remember how to fight?" Jira smiled weakly, with one lung, 3 broken ribs, and no armor. "Sure." A loud clang echoed from above the roof. Someone or something had climbed on top. Then a hiss, soft and sharp, followed by the sound of metal being cut. "They're cutting through," James said quietly. "Give me the blade," Jira whispered. James handed her the same plasma rod he had used to remove the parasite. She pressed the heated end against a support beam and carved a jagged spear out of it. Crude but deadly, her hands trembled, but her eyes were steady. They both looked up as the roof glowed orange. A perfect circle was being sliced, slow and deliberate. James whispered. "They want to drop in behind us." Jira crawled to the far corner, hiding behind crates and twisted metal. James moved to the other side, taking cover behind a fallen cabinet. The tension in the room grew heavy. Every second felt like an hour. Then, with a crash, the circle of metal dropped to the floor. two armored figures jumped in, weapons drawn. Red visors glowing like eyes from a nightmare. The first stepped forward. Aiming straight at James, "Drop your weapon." Human, the voice was mechanical. But cruel, James didn't move. He kept the blaster low. Hidden behind the edge of the crate, he waited. The second soldier scanned the room. Stopping near Jira's blood trail, target is close. Traces are fresh. Just then Jira leaped out from the shadows. Her spear swinging fast. She stabbed the second soldier in the neck. Sparks flying from the cracked armor, the alien let out a loud screech and fell back. James took his chance, raised the blaster, and fired. The first shot hit the lead soldier in the chest. His armor absorbed it. Barely, but it pushed him back. James fired again. But the weapon buzzed, it was out. The soldier turned to fire back, but Jira moved like a shadow, slamming her spear into his side. Her body screamed in pain, but she didn't stop. She used her full weight and drove the spear through the soft joint in the armor. The alien dropped, gasping. Both enemies now on the ground, not dead, but disabled. Jira fell to her knees, coughing, blood soaking her side again. James rushed to her, helping her sit up. "You're bleeding again," he said. Panic in his voice. She laughed even while coughing. Better than bleeding alone, James grabbed cloth and pressed it against her wound. His hands were shaking again, not from fear, but from the memory this wasn't his first time holding someone's life in his hands. He remembered his brother Lucas lying in a destroyed bunker years ago, wounded and waiting for help that never came. James had failed him once. He wouldn't fail again. Suddenly, a sharp beep came from the scanner again. Jira's eyes widened. No, they weren't alone, outside. More shapes move, this time faster, more soldiers. And worse, one of them carried a signal amplifier. A black sphere on his back, glowing like a heartbeat. "They're trying to ping the seed again," Jira said weakly, "to confirm if I'm dead. Or still alive." James stood up, thinking fast. "We need to make them think you're already gone." He grabbed the crushed body of the first attacker and dragged it near the entrance. He ripped off its armor plate, covered it in Jira's blood-soaked cloth, and placed her cracked chest plate on top of it. It wasn't perfect, but with the storm outside and the scanner confusion, might work. "Lie still," he said to Jira, then ran back to the panel. Flipped the emergency override and opened the side hatch halfway. From the fog, the new squad stopped. Their red visors scanned the broken pod, the dead soldier, the blood. And the faint signal from the armor piece. They stood for a long moment. Then the leader raised a fist, paused, and gave a sharp nod. Retreat. The figures turned and vanished into the storm. James fell back against the wall, his legs shaking. He looked at Jira, still lying motionless. Her breathing slow. "They bought it," he whispered. Jira opened one eye and smiled faintly. "That's the first time my own people thought I was dead. And it saved my life." James laughed, his voice cracking. "You're welcome, outside." The storm swallowed the last of the soldiers, but deep in James' gut, he knew they would be back, and next time, they wouldn't be fooled so easily. The pod had fallen quiet again, but James didn't relax. He sat near the open hatch, eyes on the fog. Blaster now empty and useless in his hands. The air outside was colder, heavier, like it knew something worse was coming. Jira lay against the wall. Her eyes half closed, her skin was pale. Her chest wound still bleeding slow, but steady. She looked fragile now. Not like the warrior who had leaped from the shadows with a spear in her hand, but like someone caught between life and death. James stood and sealed the hatch again, pushing crates and metal panels in front of it. "They'll come back," he said softly. More to himself than her. "They will," Shiro whispered. The false signal will only confuse them for a short time once they realize I'm not truly dead. They'll send the real hunters. James turned to her. What's the difference? Jera's eyes opened wider, fear flickering in them. The first ones were soldiers, trained, but careful. The hunters don't take prisoners. They don't ask questions. They destroy everything. Just to be sure, James swallowed hard. How much time do we have? Minutes, she said. Maybe less. He began moving quickly. Gathering his tools, loading what he could into a bag. He looked around for anything useful. No food left. One small power cell, half a roll of synthetic bandage. Nothing close to enough. We have to leave, he said. This pod is a tomb if we stay, Jera groaned. Trying to sit up, her legs shook beneath her. She collapsed again, breathing hard. I can't walk far. Not like this. James knelt beside her. Then I'll carry you. She looked at him like he was mad. You won't get far dragging a half-dead alien across the battlefield. I won't leave you here, he said. I've done that before, to someone else. And I still live with it. Jera stared at him for a long moment, then gave a weak nod. Then let's not die here. He helped her up, wrapping her arm around his shoulders. She hissed in pain, her body stiff, but she forced herself to move. James opened the emergency hatch and stepped out into the cold wind. The fog was thicker now, crawling like a living thing. They moved between broken ships, shattered vehicles, and scorched ground. Each step was slow, and Jera leaned heavier against him with every passing second. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed in the distance, a high-pitched screech, followed by a deep mechanical roar. Jera stiffened. They're here. James didn't look back. He gritted his teeth and kept walking. We just need cover, he whispered. Something to hide in. They stumbled across a half-buried trench. Once part of a command station, James helped her down into it, covering the entrance with scrap metal and thick fabric. Inside, it was dark, cold, and narrow, but it was shelter. Jera slid down the wall, her body trembling. They will scan for life signs, she said, and heat. They'll find us. James pulled the last power cell from his pack, cracked it open, and rewired the circuits. Not if I can hide them. He connected it to the scanner and began overriding the signal. The device blinked rapidly, then gave a low hum, masking both their heartbeats and heat signatures for a short time. I've bought us maybe 15 minutes, he said. After that, she nodded. Then let's make them count. They sat in silence. The only sounds were the wind outside and their soft breathing. James looked at her face, calm now, but bruised, tired, full of pain, yet still fighting. You were one of them, he said suddenly. The soldiers, the ones who follow orders. How did you become this? She looked at him with heavy eyes. I was raised in war, trained to kill. My people don't believe in mercy. Only control, but when I saw what they made me do, I broke. James nodded slowly. Then maybe we're more alike than I thought. Suddenly, a sharp thump hit the trench roof once, then again. The sound of metal claws dragging across the top. Slow and careful, Jera tensed, her hand gripping the broken spear. James held his breath, then silence. Moments passed like hours, then a faint voice from above. Mechanical, cold, life signs not found. Continue scan, sweep west. The sound of boots faded into the distance. James exhaled, shoulders sagging. They missed us. Jera's grip on the spear loosened, her head resting against the wall. Not for long, she said. They always come back. James looked at the scanner, power draining fast. Time was running out. He turned to her. There's a tower not far from here, half buried, if I can reach it. I might be able to call for help. Human help? She asked, surprised. He nodded. My old crew. If they're still alive, they owe me. Jera touched his arm. Then go. James hesitated. "I'm not leaving you alone." She forced a small smile. "I'm not afraid to die." "Not anymore." James leaned close. "Then don't." "Not today." He grabbed his tools, checked the scanner one last time, and opened the hatch slowly. Fog rolled in, and shadows moved far off in the distance. He looked back at her once more. "Stay alive, Jira." And then, without another word, he disappeared into the storm. James moved like a shadow through the fog. His boots pressed deep into ash-covered mud, steam rising from cracks in the earth. Above him, the sky was black, heavy with smoke. Flickers of fire dancing between the clouds like broken lightning. This place had once been a battlefield. Now it was a graveyard, silent and dangerous, in his hand. He carried the broken scanner and the last working battery cell. On his back, just hope, nothing more. The tower was close, hidden behind a ridge of burnt-out transports and broken drones. If it still worked, it was their only chance. Back in the trench, Jira lay still. Her hand gripped the broken spear, her body trembling from cold and pain. The air around her was heavy with silence, but her heart beat steady. She had trained for death, but not for this kind of waiting. Each breath burned, each second stretched longer than the last. Then No's footsteps, slow and deliberate. Metal claws dragging against steel. Breathing like hissing fire, the hunters had returned. Jira pressed herself against the trench wall, hiding behind debris. Her fingers tightened on the spear as she heard voices above her. "No body." One growled. "But scent remains. Confirm pulse residue," said another. "The seed is gone, but the host is still alive." Jira closed her eyes, her pulse racing. They were scanning for her, listening for a heartbeat, a breath, anything. She pressed the spear's tip against her own neck. "If they find me, I'll strike before they do," she whispered to herself. Meanwhile, James reached the base of the tower. It leaned sideways, bent from past explosions. But the satellite dish still pointed to the sky. He climbed the rusted ladder carefully, wind pressing against his back at the top. He connected the scanner to the uplink port. Lights flickered, the screen buzzed and a signal beeped. He smiled faintly. Come on," he whispered. The screen flashed uplink active signal locked. But then another message appeared. "Power low signal will break in 90 seconds. He didn't waste time. He typed in the call sign, his crew's emergency channel, and recorded the message fast. "This is James Blake. I'm alive. Zone 3 to 17. With an injured alien survivor, we are under threat from enemy hunter units. Request pickup or fire support. I repeat, Zone 3 to 17. Send help." He hit send. The screen blinked. Then boom. A loud explosion shook the tower base. James nearly fell off the ladder. He looked down and saw them. 3 hunters at the base of the tower, their weapons glowing. They had followed his trail. James grabbed the coil from his pack, connected it to the tower's backup cell, overloading it. He jumped off the ladder into the mud just as the top of the tower exploded in fire. The blast threw the hunter's back, 1 completely vaporized, 2 disabled. James crawled through the mud, coughing, body burned. But the signal had gone through, he was sure of it. Back in the trench, Jira heard the blast. Her eyes snapped open. "James," she breathed. But she had no time to think. The last 2 hunters from the first wave had found her position. They dropped into the trench fast. Guns raised, armor hissing with power. Jira didn't flinch. She screamed and charged with the spear. 1 hunter fired, but she rolled under it, stabbing upward through the armor joint. Sparks burst into the air, and the alien collapsed, twitching. The second grabbed her by the neck. Lifting her off the ground, his voice was cold. "You were marked to die," she gasped. Eyes glowing, blood dripping from her mouth. "Then do it. The hunter raised his blade arm butt before he could strike. A blast of lightning blue energy slammed into his back. James had returned. He stood at the edge of the trench, holding a hunter weapon he had grabbed from the tower ambush. Smoke rising from the barrel, his eyes were wild, his clothes torn. His hands burned, but he was alive. The last hunter dropped Jira and turned. But James was faster. One more blast tore into the alien's chest. Knocking him down for good, James rushed forward. Catching Jira as she collapsed, "I got your message," she whispered faintly. Her voice almost gone. "Yeah," he said. "And I sent one of my own." He laid her down carefully, wrapping her wounds again. The sky above rumbled, and then a faint sound echoed through the clouds. "Engines," Jira blinked. "That? Your crew." James looked up, smiling. That or a really loud rescue through the storm clouds. A sleek human transport ship broke through, descending fast, spotlights scanning the ground. Jira laughed softly. "You humans." "Always so dramatic," James smiled, brushing blood from her cheek. "Only when it matters," above them. The ship's doors opened. Help had finally arrived. But the war for survival wasn't over yet. Asterisk, the rescue ship hovered above the trench, its engines roaring against the storm. The side ramp lowered, and thick ropes dropped into the mud. Human soldiers in gray armor slid down fast, blasters ready, scanning every direction. James stood with his hands raised, shouting over the wind, "She's with me." "She's not a threat," the lead soldier, a woman with sharp eyes and a scar across her cheek, approached slowly. Her rifle stayed aimed at Jira, who lay bleeding, barely able to sit up. James stepped in front of her, arms wide. "If you fire at her, you'll have to shoot me too." The soldier blinked. Surprised. "She's one of them." "She was," James said. "Now she's the reason I'm still alive." Jira's voice was barely above a whisper. "I have no fight left." The soldier hesitated, then nodded once. She motioned to her team. "Get them aboard now." Two medics rushed forward, lifting Jira carefully onto a hover stretcher. James helped guide it up the ramp, never letting go of her hand. Her fingers were cold, shaking, but she still squeezed his back, weak but alive. Inside the ship, warmth returned. The medbay lights were bright and clean. Like a dream after days of mud and blood, Jira's body was hooked to machines. Blue fluids running through tubes, monitors beeping slowly. James sat beside her, covered in burns. Bandaged but still alert. "You made it," he said softly. Jira opened one eye, barely, "only because you didn't give up on me," he chuckled. "I'm stubborn. People say that a lot." She smiled faintly, then winced in pain. The medics checked her vitals, nodding. "She's stable for now," one said, "but her internal organs took a lot of damage." "She's lucky to be breathing." James nodded. "She's not just lucky," he whispered. "She's a fighter." The ship rumbled as it lifted higher into the sky. Heading back toward the human fleet, James looked through the side window. The battlefield below disappearing into smoke and clouds. It was finally behind them, for now. Hours passed. Jira slept most of the time, her body healing slowly, but her mind was awake, remembering everything's hands, the pain, the fire, the moment he risked everything to pull that thing out of her chest. When she woke next, James was still there. His head leaned against the side of the bed, asleep. She stared at him for a long time, then whispered, "James." He jerked awake, blinking. "Jira, you okay?" She nodded slowly. "I am now." He smiled and leaned closer. "You're going to be fine. We're almost home." She looked away, then back at him. "My people will never accept me back. They'll call me traitor, coward, enemy." James shrugged. "Then maybe it's time you find new people." She raised an eyebrow. "You offering?" He hesitated, then said, Why not? You saved me as much as I saved you. I think that makes us even. Jira smiled. A real smile this time, full of warmth. Not even yet. What do you mean? She touched the center of her chest where the wound was. You took the parasite out. But something else grew in its place. James frowned. What? She leaned closer, her voice soft. A second heart. For you, his eyes widened. He didn't know what to say, but his face turned red. He looked away, but smiled. The door opened, and the lead soldier entered again, holding a datapad. We've informed command about what happened. They want to debrief you both. James stood. We'll talk to them. But she gets protection same as me. The soldier nodded slowly after what you two survived. You've both earned it. She left, and James sat again. He looked at Jira, then whispered, You don't have to decide anything now, but if you want, we could start over. You and me. Jira reached out and took his hand. Her grip still weak, but firm enough to answer without words. Silence filled the room again, but this time it wasn't fear or pain. It was peace, from enemies to survivors, from strangers to something more. A human and a warrior, bound not by war, but by what they fought through together. The ship soared into space, leaving behind the blood-soaked world. Ahead was a new beginning, and between them, a second heart beating strong.